How's it going, everybody? My name is just Jared, but you can just call me Jared no matter what my channel name still says. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about games with loot, and that's literally it. As soon as I said my list of games with loot to talk about had run dry, out of nowhere came some more, one of which is what we're talking about today, and it's called Archvale. Archvale is an open-world, bullet-hell action RPG developed by IDOS and FOPS with a planned release date of sometime later this year on PC and Nintendo Switch. This game reminds me of two of my all-time favorite pixel art games, Forager and a more recent title, The Sloremancer, both of which had my attention as soon as I saw trailers for them. I remember I played Forager for like 13 straight hours when it first released, and I've got 50 hours in The Sloremancer, and that's only in early access with like 2 levels to play, but there's tons of loot, so replayability and all that. The reason I'm saying this is because I had the exact same feeling when I first saw Archvale literally 2 days ago. This is going to be a game I play a lot, and I already can tell it's going to be a game a lot of people play a lot. And most importantly, it has loot, so let's talk about it. The story goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a king. He ruled the land. He's dead now. But what remains of him are the Undying, beings cursed with immortality and forever living in the king's prisons. You must defeat the Undying and rid the world of darkness. That's basically the gist. I hope I don't know, made it epic for you in post or something. There's more to it, I'm sure, but we're here to talk about loot, not have a 5-minute long convo about the storyline. Cool? Cool. I spent all day, technically yesterday and this morning, it's currently 3 a.m. as I'm scripting this, researching this game. The developer IDOS has been uploading devlogs on the development of the game for over 2 years now. How I haven't heard about this until now, I'll never know. I watched every single devlog from the beginning, looked at almost every teaser post in the teaser channel on the Discord, went through 2.5 years of IDOS's tweets to learn as much as I could about this game. Not only do I know a heck ton about what the game is now, but I know a heck ton of what it used to be and how it's changed over time. He's got some very entertaining devlogs, I will say that. So let's get into it. Gameplay. Archvale is inspired by games like Enter the Gungeon, Terraria, Hollow Knight, Nuclear Throne, Realm of the Mad God, and has features and mechanics in place that reflect those games. As far as level design and exploration goes, the game is part procedural and part handcrafted. The overworld, the main area you'll spend most of your adventuring and time in, consists of multiple quote-unquote rooms, which fill your entire screen and have exits and entrances to other rooms adjacent to them via north, south, east, and west passageways. The layout of these rooms is procedurally generated. The location of chests and enemy spawns are procedurally generated to an extent, and decorations and other resources are procedurally generated as well. Some of these rooms are standard rooms with just enemies to defeat, while others are unique rooms that are dependent on what biome you're in and offer up different opportunities and more loot, like bandit camps in the desert biome for example, or spider-filled caverns in the underground area. These unique rooms, which are also procedurally decorated, combined with sub-biomes, which are more diverse and varied versions of a biome, gives you a sense of exploration as you're dipping and dodging your way around the crazy fast-paced bullet hell gameplay. You'll progress through biomes and find new ones as you gain access to more powerful items and crafting materials, which are needed because enemies in later biomes are tougher to defeat. Also, different biomes have different enemies, and the time of day can also affect which enemies you'll encounter. The handcrafted part of the game is the dungeons. They're handcrafted to give the player a set challenge to complete, where the difficulty is more controlled by the developers and tests a build you're going for. These dungeons are integral to the main progression of the game and its story, and culminate in boss fights that reward you with loot and other stuff that we'll get to in the loot section of this video, which honestly should really be happening soon. I usually don't talk too long about other features a game has like I am right now. That's my bad. I've been just absolutely no-lifing trying to find out everything about Archvale to the point where it's all I can really think about. Send help. In order to get to the loot and item mechanics, first we'll start with the towns in the game. As you explore, you'll come across different towns, which are like the unique rooms we talked about a second ago, but much larger and filled with stuff to do. It's essentially a hub space, and there will be multiple towns defined in the game. Here you'll have a bank where you can store a set amount of your gold. This limited amount can be upgraded over time as gold becomes something you get more and more of. The reason there is a bank is because when you die in Archvale, you lose 30% of your gold, so if you store it, you can't lose it. You'll also find a forge in the town where you can craft. Yes, there's crafting, a lot of it. As you explore, you'll find tons of materials and resources, many of them unique to certain biomes or sub-biomes. Honey is only located in the flowery sub-biome of the forest, for example. You'll come across many different kinds of ore, which are just rocks that you break with your weapon to mine. These ores are what you use to craft new armor and weapons, starting with shell, then iron, then gold. Then there's other crazy stuff like hyperium, cobalt, zephyr, and some green material called phloem, spelled P-H-L-O-E-M. I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyways, you get the idea. As far as armor slots go, you have a slot for a helmet and a chest piece, as that's literally your entire character's sprite, both of which change how you look, and you have an unlimited amount of items and weapons you can use in combat. It all just depends on what you put in your hotbar. Back to the town, there's other buildings you can go inside, shops and merchants to buy items from, a chef that's a frog, NPCs you can talk to that may have quests. You also have your house, which you'll be able to decorate and store stuff in, as well as a farming area to grow crops. Farming is another feature in Archvale and works as a small breather from the non-stop combat. You find seeds out in the world, and each crop you plant has its own loot pool that when harvested can yield rare resources. Some plants you can even use to craft weapons, like a fire flower. Not the Mario one. Probably similar though. Okay, loot. I've talked about armor, which all have their own stat sheets, by the way, and defense numbers, etc., all those kind of trope-like things that usually come attached to loot. All that's here in Archvale, but not to the extent of something like Diablo or Terraria, where there's affixes on everything. It used to be like that, but the devs simplified it, so now, for example, you might have an amethyst staff and an amethyst staff +2. The +2 one is better. There's actual stat numbers attributed to loot still, like range, pierce, fire rate, armor penetration, or armor break. Things like that are still on loot, but just affixes aren't a thing. There's also vendors in towns that will level up your weapons in exchange for gold, which gives your items that plus whatever number next to it, indicating it's been leveled up. So, how do you get loot? That's a pretty important question. Enemies have a rare chance to drop loot. You can also get loot from bosses, mini-bosses, chests, I'm sure other things too, anywhere probably. Archvale is heavily centered around loot and your build, so you'll be looting and crafting a lot. Weapons include, but are not limited to, swords, axes, staffs, spears, flails, tomes, throwing axes, bows, bigger swords, bigger axes, clubs, throwing stars, daggers, something called the Octoshot, something called the Soul Ripper, the Fire Flower, lots of weapons. After all the research I did on Archvale, I still wasn't exactly sure if there was going to be loot rarities in the game, but iDaz kindly responded to me over on Discord, saying that there are approximately 8 tiers of loot, but there's nothing that's absolutely insanely rare. I think that covers it for loot. I'm not gonna lie, there's so much information in my brain on this game that it's kinda overwhelming, so I hopefully didn't leave anything too important out in regards to loot. Other stuff this game has in terms of character progression and just stuff to do. Badges are very important and powerful passives that can really define your character's build. You have a limited amount of badge slots, and different badges take up different amounts of slots, and you can upgrade how many slots you have via a special vendor. You can find badges from mini-boss battles, dungeons, and challenge shrines. Challenge shrines are galaxy-themed locations that are purely evasion-based. You go through multiple levels or floors of tons of projectiles being thrown at you, and if you evade without being hit, then you move on to the next floor until you reach the end, at which you'll be given an option to choose one badge to take out of 3. You also have a spell book. As you explore the world, you'll come across pillars that when activated grant you a spell, powerful abilities of which you can only have one equipped at a time. And every time you find another spell pillar, not only will you get a new spell, but all your spells will become more powerful. You can find heart containers around the world that give you permanent health increases, and fountains that you find increase your defense by 1. And you can increase the amount of health flasks you can carry by defeating dungeon bosses. And that's I think all the main points of progression in Archvale, or at least a preview of it all, from exploration to armor and weapons to crafting to upgrades, I think I touched on everything. This has been one of my longer videos in a while, which goes to show just how pumped I am for this game. Stuff we didn't talk about, like the music that's shown off in a few devlogs, or the animations of when items drop and are picked up, and just the overall pixel art style. All of it is just so good and nice to look at. They've really done a fantastic job with what seems like everything in this game, and I cannot wait to play. But that's it for this exceedingly long video. I'll leave a link to the Archvale Steam page if you want to go wishlist the game. Definitely do, because it really helps out the devs. If you enjoyed this video or found it informative, make sure to leave a like so it gets out to more people and spreads word about Archvale. Also, if you like games with loot, consider subscribing, as that's literally all we talk about here. Thanks for watching, have a good one, peace out.